Good Monday morning, everyone. How the hell are you? I'm Jeremy Birmingham. That's Bill Landis. We are back. It is Labor Day. We know a lot of people may be sleeping in today, but we wanted to make sure that things remain fluid on the podcast and that we are, dedicated to providing you the same coverage on a holiday in the season as we are any normal crappy Monday in the season. And that means 5 a.m. You're getting the rewatch of the Ohio State Indiana game. And Bill, there are a number of ways to take it from here, I think. But bottom line is Ohio State won 23-3 on the road in the Big Ten with a first time starting quarterback, three new offensive linemen, a new offensive coordinator, and it didn't feel great all the way through. It didn't feel great pretty much any of the way through, except for the first offensive drive of the day for the Buckeyes, I think. As we now take a step back, we zoom out. Do you feel better about the game, worse about the game, or the same as you felt on Saturday?
I probably feel about the same. I don't know that I came away like super alarmed by anything. I think we saw some continuation of stuff that was an issue for them at times last year, which I get is probably a bit frustrating. But I also think like week one games are weird. I think they're rarely indicative of potential season long issues just because of like the lack of the preseason. It's really the first time you're kind of getting out there against somebody in an actual game setting. So things can get a little wonky. That's not to excuse what I thought was a subpar performance by Ohio State's offense. But I don't, if I had to go any direction, I'd probably feel like slightly better, but I'm about the same, right? If they finish off like 2 or 3 more drives, which was certainly within the realm of possibility, I think a lot of people are feeling much better today than they were coming out of that game, but they didn't do it. So that's like, why does that happen? I think there's stuff to get into, but I don't know that I looked at an offense that was like dysfunctional. I think I just looked at an offense that sort of has to figure out what it wants to be this year, and they're not quite there yet.
Before we get into the minutia of specific plays, specific situations in the game, there's 2 like bigger picture topics I want to get your opinion on. First and foremost, how much do you believe that Matt Guerrieri, knowing the Ohio State offense the way he did inside and out, allowed for Tom Allen and the Indiana defense to sort of predict where the Buckeyes were going to go? Because at times it felt like to me, and again, some of this is on Ryan Day because the offense at times, especially in short yardage situations, has been pretty predictable. But it seemed like they had a very good idea of what Ohio State was going to do in that situation. Is that because they knew Ohio State was going to be vanilla? Is it because you think Matt Guerrieri has some institutional knowledge of what Ohio State was doing that allowed them to maybe get a jump on some of these things, or a combination of both? I mean, where do you see that?
Yeah, probably a combination, right? Like it's not just like the Matt Guerrieri had been at Ohio State. I think there are things that Ohio State does that people come to expect, and like Austin and I make jokes quite a bit about when like Ohio State has the ball on one of the hash marks and they're going under center or in pistol. You can guess probably fairly often what play they're going to run, and it's to run stretch into the boundary. So like Indiana knows that. They watch film. They were cheating against it quite a bit, and Ohio State was actually not as ineffective as I thought they were, kind of a first blush, but it still wasn't a particularly efficient play for them, and they ran it like 10 times. The one thing that I did feel like Indiana had a pretty good beat on were the times that Ohio State was going to try to take a shot via the passing game, and they never really could calibrate one. They had the one long one, kind of long one to Julian Fleming, obviously the one long catch and run from Cade Stover, but those like play action staples over the top pass plays just kind of weren't there. And I think that when Ohio State did try to unleash them, which was probably 4 or 5 times throughout the game, Indiana kind of was ready for it, and they didn't hit. And like those are the kind of plays that I think sort of makes Ohio State's offense what it is. And you hit 1 or 2 of those, and I think you're feeling like you more or less solved the Ohio State offense in that game.
Yeah, you hit the seam to Stover. Beautiful pass, maybe like the best throw of the day by McCord. If you're talking just best throw. He did the one to Julian Fleming, which is only like a 15-yard pass, but threw it in between 3 guys, and it was a beautifully thrown ball. Threw the one down the sideline to Marvin Harrison that drew the pass interference penalty. That was a really nicely thrown ball. But then he had some others. The one to Fleming in the first quarter was open and missed him. The Indiana defender made a good play getting in the way of Julian's eyesight, I think, in that play. But Generally, I just think that the offense, and I said last week on the Rooster show that I was hoping Ohio State's defense would come out very basic and to not show a lot and just beat Indiana man to man, which is pretty much what they did. We can nitpick the defense in a lot of ways, and I don't think that there's a ton of value in doing that yet. But offensively, I said it on the Keys show, the pregame show on Saturday. I really thought Ohio State needed to go out and be aggressive and take some shots and let Kyle McCord make mistakes. And I felt that way through most of the first quarter. And then my thinking on it almost evolved without me wanting it to, as I realized that the possessions were just not going to be like they were before. Ohio State had 17 possessions a year ago against Indiana, and they had 10 on Saturday, 10 total possessions for the game. And this new clock rule is going to change things in a way that I don't think people really anticipated. And I do wonder, because you're in a position with a first-time starting quarterback and the new offensive line, where maybe you are going to be more conservative than ever without really trying to be, because you're just trying to make sure you don't put them in bad positions. But now you're putting that new conservative bent on things on top of the running clock. And it just seems like the offense was like slogging last year. I don't know necessarily that Ohio State was being all that much more conservative, but when you don't have the game breaking type plays, the deep shots, all of a sudden those 3-play touchdown drives a year ago turn into 12 or 14 play drives that end in field goal attempts. And it just seems like you waste a lot of opportunity.
Yeah, I think perhaps that the totals in some of these games will be lower because of that. Maybe we have to adjust our expectations. I don't want to say that we're there yet, because the sample size is so small, and like Oregon
still scored 82 points.
Yeah, Oregon scored 81 points. Granted, against an FCS team, but still, like and Ohio State will probably do the same next week against Youngstown State. Like points per drive might become more interesting. I think maybe you just want to look at that number and make sure it's on par with where Ohio State has been in the past, if there are fewer possessions per game. But even on Saturday, like if Kyle McCord reads that block rate on the QB draw, right, there's another 7. You're sitting at 30 points. If for whatever reason, and granted it would have been super garbage time, but like Ryan Day goes for it on 4th down in the red zone, and then they get another 4th down and they kick a field goal instead at the end of the game instead of trying to score a touchdown, then you're looking at 37, 38 points.
If Carnell Tate doesn't get the ball knocked out of his hands at the 2-yard line, the Buckeyes likely score a touchdown on that drive.
Yeah, so like there were still opportunities there for Ohio State to put up a number that you're used to seeing. So I don't dismiss what Ryan Day said about there being fewer plays and fewer possessions, but there were still plenty of opportunities there for them to end this game with a much more comfortable win than they ended up getting. Continuing
the macro look before we dive into the micro, like how impressed were you with the defense? Again, I know it sounds generic, but we had no idea Indiana was going to be running a triple option offense heading into Saturday. No one did. So were you surprised that Ohio State was able to handle it as well as they did? Normally, triple option is when you have a bunch of dudes who are not athletic enough to make any plays. That Indiana backfield has Christian Turner. That's a Michigan transfer at running back, Taven Jackson, a Tennessee transfer at quarterback. You've got the little guy, number 12, whose name has escaped me. That dude's electric when he gets the football in his hands.
Yeah.
They did it. They had some athletes back there. They had a 1,000-yard receiver on that offense. So you do have weapons, but I was just impressed that Ohio State didn't seem to like look confused. You remember a couple of years ago, we were at Nebraska and the Cornhuskers came out and ran triple option, and we're like, what in the hell is going on? And it was entirely confusing and nobody knew what they were doing. That was not the case on Saturday.
Yeah, Nebraska drove the ball down the field. Everybody was going nuts, and then I think they threw a pick, and then they just stopped doing it. It was the only thing that worked for them all game. I guess like in an odd way, I was kind of impressed with the defense being able to handle that. I know I wasn't expecting it. I know Jim Knowles did not speak after the game. I guess if we get him on Tuesday, we can ask him how much he was expecting it. But they handled it very well. Like it's like shotgun triple option. It's a little more like a Tulane offense than it is like a service academy. So it's a little different. Like guys aren't taking out your knees like you would get when you're playing against an Army or a Navy or an Air Force. So that's not quite the same thing, but it's still hard, right? You still got to read your keys. There's a lot of different things that can happen within a single play. And I thought for the most part, Ohio State had it down. And I said this on the postgame show afterward with Doug, but I think maybe the thing that I was most impressed with with Ohio State, and on a day when Indiana was like very clearly not trying to win, just trying to hold on and cover. They were running the type of offense that I do think can lull you to sleep a little bit and just sort of get you lazy and flat-footed, and really triggering hard downhill. And then that's when they throw the ball over the top on you. And the couple of times that Indiana tried to do that, I guess it's the same as Indiana's defense. Ohio State was ready for it with a PBU or good coverage that led to an incompletion. Like the big plays just weren't there. And I do think, given the state of that game and sort of the sluggish nature of it, they could have happened and they didn't, which was nice.
Yeah, I was actually surprised. Indiana had 4 pass plays of over 15 yards in this game. And 3 of them were on obvious passing downs, third and 20, second and 20, second and 10. And those were their biggest plays. And so like, if I'm going to get nitpicky on the defense, it's like, even though you knew in these moments where they weren't trying to throw the ball most of the game, the 3 or 4 times when you knew they were going to, they still picked up 15 plus yards 3 times out of 4. And there was no pass rush. And that was a little bit concerning. Jack Sawyer walking off the field was saying, these guys didn't even try to drop back in this game, as if to say, hey, the pass rush is not going to get home. But in those instances where they did, the pass rush didn't get there. And multiple times on Davison and Benosin, once on Denzel Burke, they were playing so soft in coverage, I think because they're waiting for the option stuff to happen, that there were some large pickups. I'm not going to, again, you give up 153 yards to a Big Ten offense. I don't care how unusual it is or how new the players are. That's pretty good. I was also curious from your perspective, before we dive into individual moments. You and Doug talked at length about the quarterback situation on Saturday night, folks. If you haven't watched the post-game live show, you should do that. But it was clear Ryan Day wanted Devin Brown to play more and didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a problem or not?
Yeah, I think. Well, I don't know. I guess it depends on what the ultimate outcome of that is, right? If the outcome of that is you're going to the Notre Dame game and you're uncertain who your quarterback is, then yes, that's a problem. It's probably too early to say right now that that's a problem. It was probably mishandled a little bit, and I don't use that word to like try to be what's the word that people use when they use headlines that aren't necessarily
salacious
to grab opinions? Yeah, clickbaity. Sorry, thank you. Clickbaity, salacious.
I like salacious.
Yeah, salacious is better. It's just like the expectations that were set and then what happened were not the same thing. So either Ryan Day articulated it poorly when we talked to him earlier in the week, or he like sort of deviated from the plan once he got into the game and realized it was going to be a little bit of a slog. But I watching that game, at any point did you think Ohio State was going to lose? Like they were just kind of playing poorly. So like I don't know why you couldn't do it. So that was a frustrating part for me. Like they definitely could have played Devin more than they did.
Especially because you said all week they're basically even. There's Kyle's a little bit more consistent. He's been more consistent in the last 10 days. But if you're going to give them an opportunity to get similar reps in this game, then you had plenty of opportunity to do it. Yeah. I think to me, it underlines a point. We talked all offseason about Ryan Day and the roles he was going to take on game day. And it's, if you're going to be the Georgia Ryan Day, I have no problem with you being the play caller and everything else. But if you're the play caller and you're the guy deciding the QB rotation and you're the guy that's the head coach dealing with the officials and everything else, one of those things is going to have to be passed off to someone else in a game like this. So whatever it is, if you let Corey Dennis decide when to rotate quarterbacks, if you let Todd Fitch, I don't care who you do, at that point, I think you have to take a step back and say somebody else has to carry some of this weight during the game because I'm doing this or this. And I do worry potentially that was the issue on Saturday, where you mentioned in the postgame show that maybe sometimes Ryan Day talks himself into believing an opponent is going to give them a better game than they should. And you could almost see it when Ohio State didn't get any movement on their second drive of the game, that the coaching staff was like, oh, now we need to be careful. Like there's just no reason to be careful. Indiana was not going to win that game. They could do nothing with the football. So I think at that point, you should have been even more aggressive with your offense.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Their first run was a 2-yard loss, right? And I wonder what kind of seed of doubt that might have planted in Ryan Day's head. I don't think that it should have. That was probably the most disappointing, for lack of a better word, thing for me. I I was greatly anticipating like Ryan Day sort of operating the way he operated against Georgia for the entirety of a season, and that was not that. I get it's a different roster, new quarterback. There's stuff on the offense that is vastly different from what was from that team going into the Georgia game, but I don't think that should matter. It's almost like a program identity thing to me. Like decide what you want to be and be it, and it feels like they get caught in between sometimes.
See, I also, and the identity thing is a point that I've been sort of thinking about and ruminating on in the last day. Does it matter? So let's say Ohio State wins that game 55-0, like would the only thing that would make Ohio State fans happy, right? If the Buckeyes win 56-0, but let's say they won it 56-0 with 500 yards rushing and 20 yards passing. Would people be happy or would they be mad?
I don't know. That'd be awesome to watch. I would love to watch a team rush for that many yards. I just think you want to like, I don't know. It's my personal opinion. Like, I don't care how they score as long as they score. If your thing is like, we have the best receivers, we have the best quarterbacks, we put 50 on the board every week, we roll off the bus and we can score 40 against anybody, then do it. And
Right.
when you don't do it, like, don't act like, oh, we'll figure it out. Like accept the criticism, I guess, that comes with it when it happens. I think it's totally fine that a team is on firing on all cylinders in week one, sort of regardless of what state your roster is in. But there was some sloppy play, like stuff they have to clean up, things that need to be better in 3 weeks when they go to South Bend. And I feel like it's also okay to acknowledge that, even though much of it comes off as maybe overreactionary week one stuff.
And I also think like what you're bringing up is, your identity as Ryan Day, your identity is the QB guy with the high flying offense. And when that's your identity, and then you look at the way the game against Indiana played out, when the Buckeyes went to tempo, when they let Kyle McCord just drop back and throw the football, that's when the offense was its best. So like, this is your identity and this is what you're doing best on the field. So why not just stick with that? We got into this conversation a year ago so many times where Ryan Day would admit that he was going into games trying to prove something to his team. Like, to me, maybe it's time to just prove to the team we're just going to do what we do best. And if it takes a couple weeks for the left side of the offensive line to get up to par, that's okay because we have the best receivers in the country and we can make do in that time. We can certainly deep dive into the offensive line and especially the left side. I don't even know what to say about it, to be honest. As I rewatched the game, it was worse than I thought, and it wasn't all Josh Simmons. Donovan Jackson had a really, really rough day, a number of times just not blocking anybody. And I don't know if this is a communication issue because you have 3 new offensive linemen. I imagine some of it is. Multiple times where Cade Stover misses blocks where you're like, what? Who's supposed to be getting this guy? And again, Indiana and Tommy Allen deserve some credit. Number one, the defensive end that they brought in from Western Michigan was really, really good. Whose name, again, sorry, is escaping me.
Andre Carter.
Very good player. Number 44, Casey, the linebacker, was excellent. So you have a couple NFL type players on that defense, but those guys were the 2 that just regularly weren't blocked. And I'm like, I don't know how that's possible. You think about that 4th and 1 or the 3rd and 2, the quarterback power with Devin Brown, both Donovan Jackson and Josh Simmons just didn't block anybody. And it almost looked like Donovan Jackson was pulling on that play. Like he was doing weird little shuffle thing, which he did on the quarterback draw with Kyle McCord as well, where he's pulling, and it's not like he's really pulling because he's not running. He's almost like shuffling and waiting for the hole to open and then to go to that. I don't know offensive line play that well, so I'd like to hear some explanation on what that technique is. But both times he didn't hit anybody. And in fact, if Andre Carter doesn't bring down Devin Brown in the backfield on that 3rd and 2, there's a safety that nobody blocked either who would have absolutely blown him up for a 4-yard loss. So I don't understand where it was going, but offensive line, I thought even Donovan Jackson and Josh Simmons, as rough a day as I thought they had, when you just drop back and threw the football, they were better. They were better with tempo. So I don't know, man. I did not understand that offensive line approach. I asked you to find that play I'm talking about, the McCord QB draw where he should have had a touchdown, but he went the wrong way. I don't know what Donovan Jackson's job is there. And I'm saying that out of true ignorance of it, because it's like this weird little shuffle towards what you'd think is a normal, when you think of a guard pulling, he's hauling ass around the edge and run. He's just waiting. It's like he looked like Le'Veon Bell back there. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. I think I am also unclear on what the job description is there, so I don't want to pretend like I know that. I would just say that generally it did feel like they were struggling with some like IDs and fitting up a lot of stuff in the run game. I think especially on the left side of the offensive line, which is really not what you want to see at all from like Donovan Jackson and Josh Simmons have both started for full seasons in major college football. Like I don't think those things should be happening.
Is this a Carson Hinsman issue? I mean, are we giving? I'm trying to figure out.
I don't know.
If we're blaming the wrong people or putting it on the wrong people. I'm not going to blame on any one of these guys because they're just trying to figure out what they're doing. But it seemed like there was just a total miscommunication issue on the offensive line.
Yeah, I think there were some of those issues. I don't know if that's when you ask about communication, right? They always say it's like the tackles and the center. So I don't want to put it all on one guy, and it's on the quarterback too to make sure you see things.
Well,
the
that's
right
good
way.
news. All four of those guys are brand new starters, and that was not an issue at all.
Right. So I think like there's probably communication stuff that will I would assume get better as the season goes on. Like I don't know that that's
can't
abnormal.
get worse.
It can't get worse, right? And I also think the coaching staff can help them too. And it's not even like predictability. I know we talked a lot about that. We were talking a lot about it on the board, like during the game at OhioState.Rivals.com. But like there's one play in particular that stands out for me. People were tweeting about it yesterday, and like someone reminded me of it on Sunday. And there was a play where like the design of the play would have required Carson Hinsman to reach block, which is to get to the outside shoulder of a guy who was 2 gaps over from him. And like he's never going to get there. So the result of that play was Donovan Jackson had to block that guy and stay on that block way too long. And then I think it was Aaron Casey just runs right up the middle, untouched. He's a free hitter on Travion Henderson and drops in the backfield for a 2-yard loss. Like, yes, I guess that's poor offensive line play. I think it's more bad play design. I just think there's things that Ryan Day and Justin Fry and Brian Hartline and whoever else is part of this brain trust can do to help this offensive line play better and grow and gel the way it needs to before you go to South Bend. And there was some of that, right? They did have a good mix at times with the run game. Their first drive, they ran 6 different run plays. And then they just sort of fell into running the stuff that
counters and everything else that we hadn't seen before. I mean, Travion Henderson's biggest run of the day, the 19-yard run that he had, was on a counter where you had both guys on the left side of the line pulling, and they did a great job. You know, there was another play, like Travion, he had like a 14-yard run, and I think it was like 13 minutes left in the second quarter or something. And Josh Simmons didn't block anybody, and he still was able to get straight up the middle for 14 yards because he saw the hole and got there quickly. I actually thought Travion, upon rewatching, played a better game than I thought watching it live. Like,
that's interesting because I thought differently.
I thought that obviously he had 49 yards and 32 of them were on 2 carries. So I have a tough time putting that on him. He had a run down inside of the red zone that led to the touchdown drive the second quarter where the Buckeyes had to settle for a field goal after the McCord missed he had a nice run down there. He had a good run around left side in the first quarter when he trucked someone. It was only 5 yards, but it was a nice physical run. I thought there were things he did pretty well. It's just, I don't know what you're supposed to do when you get the ball 4 yards deep and there's 2 guys in the backfield on you. I mean, the difference, I guess, like Chip Trainham's first run of the day, he was in the same situation and he caught it and he knew exactly where to make his cut to. And I can understand, and I'll buy that argument that maybe Travion would have danced there instead of putting his foot down and going, where Chip saw it and then immediately went around and picked up, I think, 18 yards. So like, I can buy that he's maybe not seeing it as well as we'd hope, considering everything we heard about in this offseason. But I don't think that he was bad on Saturday. I just think that the offensive line did not do him favors. And not just the offensive line. Again, the tight end blocking was bad. The wide receivers were put in position where I don't know that they were getting anything done when they were playing in the box. It was just very disjointed from an entire run blocking scheme.
I think if you and I did this, like I charted every single run that Ohio State had on Saturday, and Travion was, like, to be fair, he got the worst blocking, I think, of any of the 3 guys who got carries in that game. The thing that I was, I don't know, bummed to see, I guess, is that I did still feel like we saw some of the stuff last year that Trevion was doing, like just running the contact for no reason. I don't understand it. He has in his last 3 games, and I know he was hurt last year, but in his last 3 games, I think it's 38 carries. He's forced 1 missed tackle, and I think down or Chip might have had like 6 against Indiana. I think that is a differentiator for me right now with Chip and Mayan when he's healthy and Trevion, is that when someone's in the hole, I trust the latter two to make them miss and get 5 yards at least. And like Trevion, if he gets hit in the backfield, he's going down. And I know you don't want him to get hit in the backfield, right? You hope that it's blocked up well enough that never happens. Sometimes it does, and sometimes
But if you're elite,
sometimes you got to make something out of nothing. And I just don't know that he does it enough. I don't know that he does it enough to be the guy who's getting the outsized share of touches in the running back room. I'm not saying he needs to disappear from the offense entirely. Like when that's blocked up right and he can finally hit the hole, like he's gone. But and I don't know if that's true about the other guys, but especially in a game like that. And I think that's why you saw them settle into really feeding Chip in the second half. Chip was just more decisive, and when there was someone there to make miss, Chip did it much more often than Trevion did.
Yeah, I think that Trevion at times is almost like a shooting guard in basketball, where sometimes if he's not hitting his shots, you got to find a way to get into the line and let him see it go through the hoop, right?
Yeah,
like
it's a good analogy.
If you need to give him a screen pass, something to get him out in space, to just let him get to the outside, like the guy is just not meant to run in between the tackles, but also he's clearly incapable of being electric on that boundary side, play that the Ohio State runs over and over and over. So like when they did that little quick toss to him, that's different. When they ran the counters like that, it takes maybe a half a second longer for him to see the hole, and that counter allows for that to happen. So I don't know. I don't know exactly what the issue is, but you could see that Chip had a different gear and made his decisions quicker. I think Mayan, he's been dinged up throughout fall camp. And there was one play in this game. I mean, I think it was 3rd and 2. Ohio State had the Bison package out there for the first time. Indiana had 10 guys in the box, and Ohio State had 7 offensive linemen and still ran it right up the middle. And if I think a healthy Mayan, all he has to do is slip 1 tackle there, and it ended up being a shoestring tackle by Aaron Casey that brought him down for a loss. And then the next play was the interception by McCord. So, they ran the Bison out there again with 10 guys in the box again, and no receivers on the field, which was interesting because to me, if you're going to run a 4th and 3 play, you should probably have your best player on the field. But Mayan, I think a healthy Mayan skirts that tackle and takes it for a 7-8 yard gain, runs over the safety and makes it easily. How are you allowed to just tackle a receiver on a route? Because as I thought about that 4th down play, I'm watching it and seeing how Chip ended up on the ground there. Like he was just the corner or safety just dove at his knees when he was running out of the backfield and knocked him off his. I'm like, that's allowed?
I don't know. That was my first reaction too. And then if you watch the replay, like Chip is selling a block there. So then I guess that makes it fair game. And if it's within so many yards of the line of scrimmage, maybe it's fair game too. I don't know. If Marvin Harrison Jr. was running a 5-yard hitch on the outside and the corner just dove at his knees, then it's pass interference. But there in that situation, I guess it's not.
That play is actually, to me, a good microcosm of the entire day for Kyle McCord. Like there was, like he showed a good job rolling out, looked good, had the pocket where he wanted. Obviously, Chip gets knocked off his route, and that changes things. But Kyle has a tendency, I think, to just get rid of the ball a touch sooner than he needs to. And on that play, it's breaking down, but he didn't have anyone in his face yet. He had time to throw, and Joe Royer was breaking towards the corner. And if he, instead of throwing it across his body back when he did, if he waits a half a beat longer and throws it to the corner, he probably gets an easy first down and maybe a touchdown to Royer. So, like, it's just those little things where Kyle would come down the field. He had the throw to Julian that was really, really nice on that, like I said, in between the 3 guys. And then 3 plays later, he's got Marv one-on-one on a little out route and throws it way behind him, trying to put too much touch on it, and almost gets picked off at the goal line. So just like it was so up and down, but I don't want to be too critical of the way Kyle played, because I actually think in the second half he was pretty good.
Yeah, I don't think he was like bad by any stretch. I think I guess my way I would assess it, and it's what I said on the post game show, is like he looked like a guy who was basically starting for the first time.
Yeah.
He definitely could have made some better throws, but he made enough good throws that like you can definitely see the upside with him. And some of the stuff about, I agree with you, like getting locked on the one guy and not seeing down the field. There were a couple of those. He took checkdowns probably 3 or 4 times too early that put a little bit of a cap on the passing production, and I think would have made people feel much better about the conservative nature of the offense had Kyle just hung in there a little bit and actually surveyed the field. I think that comes with getting more comfortable and just playing more. So I guess on that hand, like I almost understand why Ryan Day wanted to leave him in there, because there were times where it just felt like he was like right on the cusp before like breaking through and like getting stuff rolling. And I like, that's hard, right? Like, do you pull him out in that situation? I don't know. That's why I don't make $10 million to be a head football coach. But I didn't come away thinking Kyle is definitely not the guy.
Yeah.
I came away thinking that he did not play well enough for him to get the entire game, and I wish Devin would have played more.
I actually thought one of Kyle's better throws on the day was at the end of the first half when he did stand in the pocket and got hit as he threw. And it's a little bit high. And Marv, a year ago, maybe Marv makes that catch. Maybe 7 out of 10 times Marv makes that catch. Instead, he doesn't, and he falls and hurts his shoulder. And thankfully, nothing serious. But I liked that play by McCord because he stood in the pocket and waited and didn't fear the hit and delivered it. And then on the flip side of that, you see him 3 plays later when Ohio State's after the fumble that was overturned. He tries to force the ball to Carnell Tate into triple coverage when he has Chip Trainum on a little crosser 5 yards in front of him in the line of scrimmage. That would have been either a first down or maybe more because there was nobody covering Chip on the crosser because he was lined up out wide. And then you go to like the first drive of the second half and you have double slants with Marvin and Emeka, and he throws it to Emeka on the inside slant when there's 3 guys there and Marv is wide open right behind him. Like you can.
Wasn't it puzzling like how little he looked Marv's way?
I mean, he targeted him 8 times, so it's not like it's that few, all things considered. I mean, for a first, I don't know how many times did he target Julian. Can you pull that up? I mean,
I don't.
6 probably.
I'll pull it.
He was 2 of 8 on. He was 2 of 8 on targets to Marv. So it's a. I think he was still targeted more than anybody else in the game. But the argument.
This is from Pro Football Focus. So it's perhaps not 100% right, but they have 8 targets for Julian, 7 for Cade, 6 for Marvin, 4 for Emeka.
So do they not count the penalties?
I would assume not. Yeah.
So, I mean, Marv obviously has to be, you need to throw him the ball 10, 12 times a game, period. So
yep.
I think it's funny that coming into the game, people were saying one of the reasons that maybe he's the guy is because of his chemistry with Marv, but like, it seemed like he didn't want to throw it to Marv when, to me, I think if I was playing quarterback, I would throw it to Marv a lot because he's the best player on the team.
I might throw it exclusively to Marv. Yeah. I don't know. It was, they could have manufactured more stuff for Marv. I think. I do wonder, and I think they're going to, at some point this season, they're going to start doing that. I do wonder how much they just wanted to kind of keep that in the bag, probably until the Notre Dame game, and not show it all in game 1.
See, that's where I've been trying to balance my response to this weekend's game. Like this is essentially for Ohio State a 4-game regular season, right? So you have Notre Dame, you have Penn State, you have Wisconsin, you have Michigan. You have time to play around with things and build things out and try to do, but at the same time, like, I don't know that coaches really want to go out there and intentionally be vanilla. Like, because they read social media, they see what people are saying, they hear the reviews, they hear, like, even if those reviews, in my opinion, are hypercritical and in some ways hysterical, I don't think anyone wants to go out there and be like, you know what, let's just get out of here. We'll just win this one and it'll be easy, because you're still a competitor and you're still trying to win a championship and you still want to be your best. But Ryan Day said after the game, like, I can be okay with this. We had good defense. I'm allowed to be excited about defense. Like, if the Ohio State Buckeyes won 49-35 against Indiana on Saturday, and Kyle McCord threw for 450 yards and 5 touchdowns, and they gave up 35 points, how crazy would people have been about the defense?
Yeah, I think the freak out would have been much larger had that happened. And the freakout's like pretty. I don't know. It's always hard for me to tell how large the freakout is because I feel like maybe I just pay attention to the loudest voices, but those voices aren't necessarily indicative of how a large percentage of the fan base is feeling. But
Yeah.
like it was, I'm not saying like if you are freaking out or upset or want it more, or whatever, that you're wrong. Like I think that's all fair. They scored 23 points against.
No, they got to be better than that. Period.
Yeah, it was a basement Big Ten team. So I don't disagree with like the notion that there's nothing wrong with winning with defense. Like that's true. And there might come a time where, again, maybe in Ohio State's future, where that is more the identity of the program, but it's not what it's supposed to be under Ryan Day. So like, I'm not going to look over here at the shiny object that is the defense playing well and ignore the offense kind of looking like crap. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like I'm not going to be distracted by that.
Well, especially when you look back at the Michigan game a year ago, Ohio State's offense scored 24 points, right? 25. I don't even remember. I blacked out halfway through that third quarter. So I don't remember the final score of that game. The Georgia game, once Marvin gets hurt, they can't find the end zone again. And so it has, as much as the concerns have been with the defense in a wholesale manner, like the offense in the games that Ohio State has lost in the last couple of years has been equally to blame because they have found ways to get extremely stagnant. And it looked like the same recipe on Saturday, which is Ryan Day getting conservative with play calling for just no reason. And that's where I don't understand. Everyone knows what you have on offense. This is not a surprise. You are not going to walk into Notre Dame and they're going to be like, oh my God, Marvin Harrison's on their team. Holy, we didn't even know that. Now we got to guard this guy. Like, you know, he's out there. Show people, in my opinion, when Darth Vader and the Galactic Empire was trying to squash the rebellion, you know what they did? They blew up a freaking planet. They took Princess Leia's home and they blew it to smithereens. Okay. They said, you see that little Alderaan in the sky? We don't care. And they blew it up. So sometimes I think it's worth it to show people what you're capable of when you unleash your full fury. And Indiana, to me, felt like Alderaan sitting in the sky, needing to be destroyed. And the fact that Ryan Day decided to play a very like down the middle, not trying to blow up your planet type of game is frustrating because the next 2 weeks don't matter. A Big Ten road win by 50, that's an eye opener. That's something where people go, holy moly. And the fact is, if Kyle McCord threw 4 interceptions yesterday, Ohio State was probably still going to win that game 7-3. So why not just go out there and let them sling it around?
I have nothing to add to that. Other than I agree with every word you just said. It is frustrating sometimes watching other college football games, and I got a chance to do that on Saturday because I did not go to Bloomington. And you see a couple teams putting on a laser show that aren't as talented offensively as Ohio State is, and why Ohio State can't do the same. Or I shouldn't say that. Like,
choose not to do the same.
Choose not to do the same, right? I'm not arrogant enough to think that Ohio State can score 50 points on anybody. Like, sometimes you just have a bad day, but they weren't even like really trying. It seemed like they were just sort of going through the motions, and like that's plenty good against Indiana, right? They won by 20. But I would like to see them like have a little more fun, be a little more aggressive, play loose. The thing, like, how many times did Ryan Day say, blow up the planet, blow up, show them the Death Star. It's okay. It's okay that you have it. Let people know about it.
So let's get to grades. This is a new thing we're going to do this year on this version of the podcast daily. And we can mix the two ideas. So we'll give a grade for the position group and the coaches. And then if we feel better, the worse, or the same from the week before, for in this case, since this was a season opener, from the end of fall camp. Play calling. Better, worse, or the same? And a grade for Saturday. Offensive play calling.
Like the same compared to much of last year. So I'd give it like a B- maybe.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a C+, and I feel worse because I really believe that we were going to see the different high energy version of Ryan Day on the play calling front. And we didn't. And that makes me feel weird, bad. Defensive play calling. I'm going to give it a B plus because it was basic and they didn't do anything and they only gave up 153 yards. Still no turnovers, still only 1 sack. Those are things that are concerning, but you gave up 153 yards and a field goal that was only willed into the uprights by the hand of God himself. So it very well should have been a shutout if the guy doesn't, pray on the way that when the kick's on the way to the uprights.
Yeah, I'll give an A for defensive play calling because I think like Jim Knowles could have gotten bored and just started like throwing stuff at Indiana that suddenly leads to them scoring 40-yard touchdowns they have no business scoring, and he didn't do that. So I give him credit for checking his aggression on a day when it wasn't needed. And I'm actually not overly concerned about the pass rush. Indiana, I think, only dropped back 21 times. Half of their throws were within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage. When they were max protecting quite a bit, and Ohio State wasn't blitzing. Ohio State blitzed once the entire game. And they were often rushing 4 against like 6 or 7 in passing situations. So I'm okay with that. Like I would love to. I want to see a lot of sacks, right? I predicted a ton of sacks for this defense this year.
And they're 703, I think you said.
Yeah. So they're not on their way to doing that, but I don't know that I didn't really come away concerned about the pass rush in that game.
I'm not concerned. It's just got the old antenna up. Like, okay, yeah, I'd like to see someone get a little closer. But again, when you only blitz one time, you sort of change the way that you're playing defense. Quarterback play. On snap judgments, Austin and I gave our grades for Kyle McCord. I gave him a B minus. I think I'm going to stick with that. I after rewatching the game, I really feel like Kyle McCord did more good things than bad things on Saturday. But with the asterisk that he had opportunities to do some really good things that he missed on. So I'm not gonna go hypercritical on it at this point, but there does need to be improvement because the standard at Ohio State is first round NFL quarterback play, and that was not what you got on Saturday.
I think B minus or C plus is fair. I might go B minus 2. On rewatch, I thought he was a little bit better. I certainly missed some stuff to your point. I did like the time or two he had to like navigate some pressure in the pocket. I like that he ran for that 8-yard scramble. Maybe like to see a little bit more of that. If he would have run that touchdown, and man, like I know it was like would have been like a 3-yard run, but I think that actually changes the tenor of the conversation quite a bit if he walks that in. So it was okay. It was I think B minus is fair.
The touch on the throw to Mayan on that little wheel route, the bullet to Julian, the pass to Cade, like there were some really good things. The scramble on the 3rd and 8 to Chip Trainum where he came back to him after in and out of the pocket. There were some good things, but misses that he shouldn't have missed, and decisions that needed to be better. And again, his statistical numbers against Indiana are very similar to every one of Ohio State's recent quarterbacks in their first start. So I'm not going to nitpick him too much on it, but next week certainly needs to be leap years better if you're going to be to the standard. Running back, I'm going to give it a B plus total because I really liked what Chip did. Travion, again, I think he was better upon rewatch than I thought, but he misses things that he shouldn't be missing if you're an elite running back. And Mayan, the 2 short yardage touchdowns, that's really all we got from him. So I liked what I saw out of Chip in the passing game. The fact that he's lining up at fullback and at tight end and everywhere else, like I'd like to give him personally an A, and the other guys like a C plus. But we're grading the group.
Yeah, I think I would give Chip an A by himself. I probably would give Mayan like a B and Travion like a C plus maybe. For the group, I'm at a B. They were fine. Like there was probably a time or two where they could have made more of the situation, but they were dealing with some suspect blocking. Chip ran really hard. I love the fullback stuff. I hope they do more of it. And Mayan doing what Mayan does, punching those 2 touchdowns in was all good. So solid start. Maybe. I mean, I predicted they were going to rush for 350 yards. That's as much an offensive line question or conversation as it is a running back conversation. So they were probably a little worse than I was anticipating, but it was still a good start.
Tight end, obviously, Cade Stover led the team in receiving yards with 98, 5 catches. Did not look comfortable blocking. G. Scott had the nice 4th down conversion. Joe Royer played limited snaps. I'm going to give them a B overall, but not what I would have expected from the leadership of that group as far as helping complement the run game.
Yeah, not a particularly strong game. Yeah, not a strong game from them in terms of blocking. Receiving is fine. Like, it's good. Someone had to pick up that slack, and it was good to see that group do it. But all the talk about like, hey, like we're improved, we're deeper, Cade is healthier. I thought that you saw a lot of the stuff that got them in a bind at the end of last season happening. Some of it was really bad. There were also a couple of runs where like they were, I think, like more in line. They were probably okay than they were like in space or kind of cutting back across the formation on some of those split zone runs were not great.
Yeah, my first touchdown run, the left side of the line was all tight ends. They're the only guys that blocked anyone, and that could have went for 70. So
yeah, I think the blocking was bad enough that I'll probably give them a C. But it was nice to see the receiving production.
Offensive line, Bill. I'm going to give him a D plus. I really did not like what I saw out of that group. And again, my rewatch is quick. I didn't spend a lot of time deep diving, rewinding, slow motion, but there are so many plays on the quick rewatch of that game where offensive linemen are standing around, not touching anybody, that I just can't understand it, or being blown up at the point or ending up on their back. I did not understand it.
I think I would give like the right side of the line a B, and maybe Carson Hinsman like a C plus to a B minus, and then the left side probably a D. So I don't know what the aggregate of all that is.
Yeah, I know that's the hard part, because we're trying to do the position in some, but clearly the left side was worse than the right side.
Yeah,
and that's the only way to put it. I'm gonna go C minus, because I think Carson Hinsman played well for his first game. I didn't see anything like glaring from him, and I'm gonna go C minus. You've talked me into it.
Yeah, C minus I think is where I'm at too. It was
very close to a D.
Yeah, it's a generous C minus.
Yeah, this is on a curve. Defensive end, Bill. Jack Sawyer, Caden Curry, JT Tuimoloau, Mitchell Melton, Kenyatta Jackson. I'm going to give them as a group a B minus. They didn't do a whole lot, and that's okay. Their job, it seemed like most of the afternoon, especially once you realize Indiana was an option team, is to contain and make sure you're in your spots and you're not letting guys, you're not biting on things you don't need to bite on. I still believe Jack Sawyer is better if he was moved inside. I just can't get it out of my head that he would be a really good 3-tech, because you watch Caden Curry when he's out there and the energy he has, the way he gets to the quarterback, the work he makes an offensive lineman put in is just different. And I think Jack Sawyer needs to move inside, but that's where I'm at. I'm going to go with a B minus.
Yeah, I'm probably at a B. Did their job right against the run, just sort of setting a good edge and letting the linebackers and safeties flow to make the plays. I thought Caden Curry had a really good game. I like that they're using him in the rushman package. I would prefer they use him outside and put Jack inside on those plays. It was fine. It wasn't a game, like I said, it wasn't a game where I think they could really showcase their pass rushing prowess should it exist. I guess that's a unknown that's lingering there, but for what the game called for, I thought they did their job, so I'll give them a B.
If I have one concern about the pass rush, is that it seems like the only way they're getting any pressure on the quarterback is by going outside, and I don't know how, that's a longer path to the quarterback. And in today's football, when the game is about getting rid of the ball quickly, someone's going to have to develop some sort of inside move to flush things that way, because they're letting the quarterback just step up and make a throw or whatever. So defensive tackle, I'm going to give a B plus, maybe an A minus. I thought the defensive tackles played really well. I thought that on Saturday. I think that again after rewatching it. Jaden McKenzie is a guy who we've sort of been waiting for 5 years to see if he was ever even going to play, and he played pretty well. Michael Hall, when he gets in there, just makes plays. I thought Tyleik Williams played a really good game for a guy that we weren't sure what type of effort you would get out of him after an inconsistent fall camp. So Hero Kanu gets a sack. Jaden McKenzie played well. Tywone Malone got in there and did some things. Ty Hamilton is his normal, consistent self. And I'm going to give them A minus.
Interesting to me that Tyleek Williams ended up being the guy who played the most snaps there. Would not have guessed that coming into the game, but it's good to see him play 30 snaps, and I thought played a pretty consistently high level. I'm probably at an A minus with them too. I don't think I'd go full A because the production like kind of wasn't there, but again, they did what the game called for. They did generate a decent amount of interior pressure, I thought, when they did get the opportunities to do so. And I think that's going to be really important because of what you said about maybe the ends not being perhaps as dynamic as we come to expect or we're expecting this year. I think like Tyleek and Mike and maybe Hero, maybe that like getting that sack can unlock something for him. And yeah, whatever. If Jaden McKenzie's giving you a lift of any kind, like that's pure bonus in my mind. So the only thing I guess with defensive tackle that was surprising, if that's the right word, is how little Tywone Malone played. He only played 5 snaps. But overall, that was a good game for that group.
Before we grade linebackers, I think we have to ask an important question. Are we considering Sonny Styles a linebacker or a safety?
That actually is a good question. I guess we consider him a safety, but he basically played linebacker.
If he played linebacker, I'm giving them an A. If he didn't, I'm going to give Tommy and Steele a B because I thought that they should have probably had more tackles considering the number of things that were going on in the option game. And I saw Josh Proctor and Sonny Styles getting more of those plays, and Davis and Igbinosun and that sort of stuff. Tommy and Steele seemed to get kind of washed up a little bit in the motion, which was a little bit, I guess, understandable considering nobody expected that going into the game. But if Sonny was at linebacker, then I give them an A because he was phenomenal.
I would agree with that assessment. It did not seem like a ton of plays were coming Steele and Tommy's way. The one time it came Tommy's way and he was in the hole and he stuck that running back, like that was pretty awesome to see.
That was a 3rd and 3. That was actually a big point in the game. That play led to Ohio State getting the opportunity to get the ball back at the end of the first half, which led to 3 points that were sort of important at that point. So
they were good. Yeah, and Steele was in coverage on one play where the guy like made like a pretty acrobatic catch, but I thought it was good coverage by Steele. So he and Tommy were good.
And Steele made the play on the Indiana's first drive of the game when they got the 3rd and 6 after the false start. They did a little swing pass out, and Steele really good open field tackle. Tommy came in and cleaned it up. I mean, they weren't bad. I don't think that they were. Sometimes it's hard to know what their job is. Is their job to get in there and muck things up, or is their job to make tackles? And if you have safeties behind you, like Lathan Ransom, like Josh Proctor, like Malik Hartford, like Sonny Styles, who are going to make tackles, then I guess I'm okay with them just mucking it up and making it dirty. But I'd like to see them be a little bit more active in the hole.
Yeah, I would say B is my way of saying you did your job, so I'll give them a B.
Yeah, it wasn't extravagant, it wasn't extraordinary, but you also didn't. It wasn't something that led to any problems. Corner, no complaints really. I mean, again, they had 80 yards passing against Ohio State, and I thought Jordan Hancock looked like a guy that the Ohio State coaching staff was raving about a year ago. Played really well. Denzel Burke played well. Igbinosun, I don't know, maybe a little bit of a mixed bag for him. It didn't seem as comfortable in coverage, and maybe just the nature of playing in your first game with a new team. I don't know. Those other guys are in their second year of the system. He's in their first. I asked Denzel Burke after the game, like, why do you look so much different right now? And he said, because I'm in my second year of the system and I know exactly where I'm supposed to be. So maybe that second year thing is really important for him and Jordan Hancock, and Igbinosun's only been in it for 6 months. So I'm not going to be too critical of him, but he was definitely not as good on Saturday as the other two. So I'm going to give the whole group a B plus, but I think they have a potential to be an A and high A group most of the year.
Yeah, I'm a B plus too. The penalty from Igbinosun, I think, plays a role in that. That was a pretty aggressive pass interference penalty.
If you're going to do it, you may as well go all the way.
Yeah, I suppose it was inconsequential, but he probably shouldn't do that again, especially in an important moment. But he also made a really nice tackle of Taven Jackson in the open field too to stop him from a first down. So I want to give him kudos to that or for that. Yeah. 2 PBUs for Denzel Burke. I thought when he was challenged, the few times he made a play. Like the way Jordan Hancock looks. So if they would have had like a takeaway, I think I probably would be giving them an A right now, but they didn't. So I'll stop short of that. Go B plus.
as a group, I really liked the physicality period. I thought they were all very comfortable being at the line of scrimmage, getting into the mix and throwing themselves around. Safety with Lathan Ransom, Josh Proctor, who missed most of the second half with a little bit of an ankle issue, Malik Hartford, Sonny Styles, if we're calling him back there. Cam Martinez played in the last 6 minutes of the game. I just don't know what's going on. Jihad Carter did not play at all. We assume he's got some injury, but we're not entirely sure. He wasn't on the injury report heading into the game, but who knows?
That's made up. So
yeah. So overall, no deep shots, lots of tackles by that group, a lot of stuff being done at the line of scrimmage or around it. I'm going to give them a B+ as well. Josh Proctor. Like, he's either going to kill you or he's going to miss on you so bad that you wonder what he's doing on the football field. And I don't know how much of that you can take as a defense. If you're playing against a team that has any sort of real offensive threat like that, that's a real risk.
Yeah, I was thinking about something that Jim Knowles said. I think it was this past week, maybe it was a week before, when he was talking about the competition at free safety, and someone asked, like, what do you like about Josh Proctor? And he said, like, the way that he triggers downhill is unbelievable. Well, then it turned out like that's what you needed against Indiana, because Indiana wasn't throwing the ball over the middle of the field. Like when he had to come down and make a play, like he made a couple of really nice plays. He had a great pass breakup on a great anticipation play. I think on a fourth down, like was almost a pick. And if he would have caught it, he would have scored. So he had a good game. Like he was a pleasant surprise for me, but I had the same concerns that you do when there was one play where like Lathan Ransom triggered super hard downhill on play action. The middle of the field was open. It was a 24-yarder, I think you mentioned earlier. And Josh Proctor has a guy lined up a free safety and he missed. Now he rebounded and ended up bringing him down probably like 6 yards after that. Didn't totally get out of the house, but like that is what I worry about with him. Can he be the eraser when someone else makes a mistake? I don't know that he can. But if you're going to play triple option teams every week, I love him out there. But I'll give credit.
He got up and made the tackle, right? Like on the first play of the game for Indiana, they ran the option. He triggered downhill and missed the guy in the backfield, and then somehow got up and still tackled him 2 yards later. I don't even know how he did it that fast. Like it speaks to how crazy of an athlete he is. He completely whiffed on the guy, and then was able to stand himself back up and then tackle him 2 yards later. So, I like the energy. I like the fact that he was aggressive, but we've always known Josh is aggressive. We just sometimes you have to just slow down and put yourself in a position to make a tackle. I loved what I saw to Malik Hartford. You're talking about that quick trigger. Like he's got it.
Yep.
He dropped an interception late in the game that maybe wasn't right at him, but certainly one he could have had. You mentioned it on the post-game show. I think that there's a little bit of Josh Proctor and Malik Hartford's game where you worry, like the eyes light up and you see the big target on a guy's chest. And you're like, oh, I'm going to murder this dude. And then all of a sudden he's 3 yards to your right because you weren't paying attention, because all you thought about was how you're going to stand over him and do this afterwards. So
yeah, I think Lathan Ransom's got a little bit of that in him too.
I think that's okay. Like at safety, you want guys that people are going to regret trying to make plays against, but you also, the best safety at Ohio State, the two best safeties in the last 10 years at Ohio State were diametric opposites on the playmaking scale, right? How they played. There was Malik Hooker, who was just dynamic and all over the place, and you never knew what he was going to do, but you knew he could save a game. And then there was Jordan Fuller, who's like, okay, I know exactly where Jordan's going to be. He's never going to make a mistake. He's always going to do the right thing. So I think you can have success with either one of those things. My concern is that you have three guys out there who are all the same.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, I mean, it's not likely that all three of them are going to miss on the same play, but if they do, it's a touchdown.
Yeah, it's a fair thing I think to have in the back of your mind. But as a first game for that group, I thought it was pretty good, and the kind of game where I think that group can thrive too. So I'm going to B+ for them. I thought it was a very good start. I am curious what it will look like in 2 weeks when they play Western Kentucky, a team that's going to throw the ball a ton, and whether or not those guys can stay a little bit within themselves and not overextend and perhaps leave themselves vulnerable to big plays.
I will say, for anyone who was concerned or having doubts about why Sonny Styles was lined up in the slot as that slot safety or that Sam linebacker or the Will linebacker or whatever he's doing, the bullet, call him whatever you want, the werewolf position, I don't know what he is. If you watch the way he's running down that little Jaden Casey dude on the end arounds, or when they ran that double reverse and Sonny, like that guy could play against it. Their concerns I heard was, what if you line him up against a small, shifty slot receiver? Like, okay, answered. Like he can be out there and do whatever he wants to do. So I can't imagine a world where he doesn't end up playing linebacker full time at some point in his life. And maybe it's not at Ohio State, but he's going to be a dynamic player in the NFL in 2 years. And so I think the Buckeyes need to find as many ways to get something out of him now as possible. So I don't care where it is. He's a freak.
I think he played, I want to make sure I have this right. So he played the third most defensive snaps behind. Latham played 55, Steele played 54, and Sonny played 49, which was one more than Tommy.
Yeah, that's unexpected. Specialists, Jaden Fielding, nice job. No kickoffs out of bounds. Hit every field goal attempt. Put the ball deep in the end zone multiple times. Did have some concerns with the return game, but that's a different story. I think that Ohio State took some chances by putting guys out there. They lined up, and after the Buckeyes' first touchdown, Indiana got a good kick return, and it was Brandon Ennis and Jermaine Matthews on the side that they kicked to, and maybe not the right time to put those guys out there against a really good return man because there was some whiffs. But that's life.
I think Jalen Lucas will probably end up being the best return man they see all year.
Yeah, I keep saying Jaden Casey. I don't know who the hell that is. Lucas is the guy's name. He was really good.
Yeah, he was like an All-American returner last year, so I wasn't surprised to see that he got loose a little bit. Doesn't make it less concerning. They need to tighten that up. But as far as kicking goes, yeah, fielding was good. Strong leg. I would just have him put it out of the end zone every time because he can do it. We've seen him do it. Don't let him return it.
I get the concept of saying, okay, put in at the 3 and make him make a decision. Like, just if your defense is, you're playing Indiana, okay? It didn't matter. Now, for Ohio State's benefit, Indiana decided to block in the back on every single kick return. So that was good because you ended up losing 10 yards per kick, but not everyone else is going to do that. So
right.
I don't know that I would go that way. So overall, offense, meh. We didn't even ask about the wide receivers because they didn't exist on Saturday. Whoops. We completely glossed over them because they didn't.
B-.
Julian played a nice game, caught the ball well. I like the way that those guys were in the blocking game. I thought they did a nice job on the perimeter blocking. Certainly would like to see more out of Emeka Egbuka and Marvin Harrison. Get them involved in the pop pass. Do the things that everyone, again, let them see the ball go through the hoop. You know, that helps the quarterback. That helps everyone else. So, and you got to throw the ball to Marvin 12 times a game. Period.
Yeah, you should never leave any game with Marvin and Emeka combining for, I think it was 5 catches. Nope.
5 catches. Yeah. And the bottom line is this. I don't know. I wouldn't expect these guys are very professional mindset wise, but after so many years of just unbridled success for wide receivers at Ohio State, I am going to be watching with interest how their approach / personas change if maybe getting the ball is a little bit more difficult. Like we've watched a group who is exceptionally non-diva'd, and I do wonder if you go a couple weeks in a row where it takes a little bit of a challenge to get the passing game unhinged, then do you see that group start to get a little bit like annoyed?
Yeah. Well, the good thing for them is they're all going to feel like Calvin Johnson next week, so that'll be fun.
You'd hope so, but the quarterback has to have time to throw the football. So
I would hope he does against Youngstown State.
You just never know. Who's their coach now? Haycock?
No, it's the guy who used to work for Fickle.
See, that guy knows how to pass rush. He knows how to get guys to the QB.
Phillips, is that his name?
Bum Phillips.
Doug Phillips.
Oh, but he's a bum though.
He's a proud Ohioan.
Yeah,
former Ohio State quality control coach.
Love that. So, guys,
he's a graduate of the University of Toledo. Man, you should love this guy.
TOL. What a tough loss for the Rockets on Saturday night. My goodness. Anyway, Bill, I think that's it for this. We almost did this like a you and Doug episode. Sorry about that, folks. Didn't mean to go an hour on that, but That's what happens when there's so much to go over and so many things that don't make sense, like pass blocking and run blocking. I just want to know what the shuffle is. What's the Donovan Jackson shuffle? What is it? Because I've never seen anything like it out of an offensive lineman before. So I can't imagine he's doing that on his own. So it's being taught for some reason. But what is it? Help us.
That's your question for Ryan Day on Tuesday. What's the shuffle?
Yeah, what is the DJ shuffle? Because it did not look normal to me. But whatever. Okay, everyone. Have a good Labor Day. Thanks for watching us. We'll be at Roosters on Tuesday this week because it's Labor Day and they're closed. That will be later in the afternoon, about 1:45 or so on Tuesday. Ryan Day press conference live from the Woody Hayes Athletic Center at noon on Tuesday. We'll have a whole lot more with Bill, Doug, Austin, myself on the podcast. And that's it. Have a safe Labor Day. Thanks for watching. See you.